Hi, welcome to Sylvie's technique vlog. In my technique vlogs, if you're new to this, I basically talk about techniques that I'm working on currently. So they're not demonstrational, they're not necessarily instructional, they're things that I've learned that I'm working on, and then I talk about what is working for me, what I'm coming up against in obstacles, why it's kind of cool, why I like it, why I'm working on it, that kind of thing. I have a public version which just introduces the idea of the technique that I'm working on so that you can immediately go try it yourself in your gym, start experimenting with it. And then I have a much more in-depth version for my patrons where I talk about what exactly I'm working with it on, where I learned it, where you can see it in the Muay Thai library and things like this. So if you're not yet a patron, it's easy to become one. Click on the link in the description below, and not only is there the full technique vlogs, but you get the full Muay Thai library, which is an incredible resource. There's nothing like it on the internet. It's long-form training sessions with legends and crews of Thailand, and just all kinds of different Muay. It'll give you your own ideas for techniques and things that you want to work on and try out and things like that. It's very exciting. This technique vlog is a little bit different, which makes me nervous because I've never done something like this. So it's a format that I invented just by thinking about it and working on it, and so that's what I'm going to try to do. So basically, I spar with Yod Kumpan every morning, and I have become able to be way more experimental with him. I was just getting my ass kicked for quite a long time, and trying to be like withstanding the storm kind of thing, and pretty recently, the past, I don't know, 4 months or something, I've been able to be way more experimental. And I film a couple of rounds of each of my sparring sessions that I show to Kevin. And usually I don't watch them because I'm very self-conscious. I don't like watching myself on film. But I was watching the last 2 days and seeing how experimental I've become. And it got me really excited because not only am I trying new things and succeeding at them, which makes them more fun. You can try things and fail at them and get on yourself about it. But I'm trying new things, but what's really cool is that they are callbacks to things that I've learned from legends and crews in the Muay Thai library. And they're not things that I like consciously decided I'm going to do this thing. They're things that have kind of been infused into my Muay, and in my ability to be more experimental, they're just coming out, which is really, really cool. So I've made a little collection of moments in our sparring where I'm doing something that is working for me and I'm enjoying a great deal. You'll hear me cackle quite a lot. This is my laugh. This is my training laugh. It's very loud. Wakes up the neighbors. But I will try to explain where I learned it and how I'm playing with it, so that you guys can, I don't know, go look at who taught it to me in the Muay Thai library and how it's done by that person, as well as seeing how I'm using it in my sparring. So this first clip is something that I took from Namsak Noi, actually. And I never really tried to do what he was doing. I actually had it done to me in our session, and it made me laugh because it was so terrifying. He does this thing where he like pinches your elbows together to pin you in space, and then he'll attack you off of that. And it's in our second session in the Muay Thai library, I am laughing so hard the entire time because it's just kind of terrifying. But so it kind of looks, right? So your opponent has their guard more or less like this, like they keep their arms staggered or whatever, but basically your arms are more or less like this. What you're doing is pinning right at the elbow or kind of up here, and you're doing it, you don't want to reach wide and come like this. This would be very bad because you're kind of like grabbing like this. You actually just want to come and pin like this. So so if this is your opponent, this is your opponent's guard, you're basically always trying to get your hand to the outside, to the top, or you can come inside and kind of push it out. But you basically don't want to be like this all the time. So what you're doing with this Namsak Noi thing is you're kind of touching, guarding, checking, and then you just slip to the outside of the glove. And for me, I don't go all the way to the elbow because I'm short. He pins like right at the elbow, so his hand would be like this, pinning both the elbows together at the same time. I'm basically just sliding down and pinning Yod Kumpan right about here. and I just put pressure on both sides of his arms, and then I can launch my knee, a straight knee, right out of that. So this is what that looks like in sparring. So this second one is also getting to the outside, but instead of like coming to the outside of the hand and pushing this across the body, you're going to be catching a kick and pulling the opponent's kick across their body. Anytime you take an opponent's limb and move it across their center line, move it across their body, you're effectively distorting their balance so much that it's going to make it really hard for them to counter or block you or anything like this. So when I catch a kick from my orthodox stance, sometimes I'll like hook it with my right arm. Often when I do that, my torso gets in the way. Like when I've caught it, you then have to move your hips out of the way in order to clear it, to like push it across the body. So someone like Nam Kabuan, who back in the day when he was still allowed to plow, he would catch it like this and turn into like a football player, just put his hand into the chest and go, because he has it locked against his body. So clearing that leg can be a little bit tricky. Something that I sometimes do in order to solve this is that I actually catch it with my opposite arm. This obviously has some drawbacks in that if you're catching with your opposite arm, you're now leaving a lot open. But if you can kind of catch it here or catch it kind of across, like a little like basket catch, and then you can pull it across your body, which is then pulling it across your opponent's body, and that's going to distort their balance a great deal. Once you've turned your opponent so deliberately, this is not throwing the kick so much, like you can catch it and like whip it, which is really, really good. This is a very good aesthetic point in Thai scoring, with this off balance and then scoring. But if you can pull it across the body and distort their balance this much, you now have the option to hit their backside, which is a great point because there's no way for them to defend it. It's their backside, you can't block anything, so it's like a clean point. It's basically a like for free point. So when you clear it and you've created that back side, I like to kick the legs because it's annoying and it further off balances people. You can hurt people pretty good by like hitting the hamstrings and stuff like this. You can also kick someone in the back. That's not a foul in Thailand Muay Thai. But so basically I just clear it and then I want to nail the back of the legs as like a further off balancing. It like kind of puts a little megaphone on the point of off balancing and then hitting your opponent in a spot that they can't really protect themselves. So hitting the backside of an opponent that you've turned is something that I have enjoyed doing in my sparring as of late. So this is a combination of the first two techniques working together, but kind of a slight variation on each of them. So I'm still pinching the arms and kind of forcing the guard into one spot as a distraction so that I can then land a knee or something like this, but I'm using it actually for a kick. So I'm pinching the arms and then I'm gonna kick into the body. And then I also spin out to the opposite side. So again, pushing the guard across the opponent's body so that they spin. This creates an open side. Prior to this, I was kicking the back of the legs, which is the back side that can't really be defended. You can also spin to one side and take a shot at the open side of the body, which hopefully if they don't block, if it's undefended, this is a huge point. Not only have you off balanced them, but now you've landed into the open side. If you're not really familiar with Thai scoring in terms of like Thailand Muay Thai scoring, there's something called the open side, which I talk a lot about in the Muay Thai library in my voiceover, because this has become something that is taught by absolutely everybody, and it's really not focused on in Western gyms that I ever experienced. But the open side basically, as a cheat to understand this, is wherever your belly button is facing. So if you think of someone who's like in a stance, like they're not squared up, they're in a stance, my belly button is facing that way, and this side of my body is much smaller. It's a much smaller target, and so hitting that side of the body is basically the closed side, and while it does score, it does not score as highly as hitting the open side, which is a bigger target, which is actually easier to defend. So the open side of my body, I can bring a check up, I can bring my arm out, I can actually strike you with my power. But by kicking the open side, landing on the open side, this is a bigger point. So taking the first two techniques and then kind of changing them up a little bit more, scoring to the open side of the body when you've already been annoying someone with this pinching and kicking the backside that can't be defended is a very nice little like mix up. Something that they're going to be saying a lot of in the Muay Thai library, if you watch sessions in the Muay Thai library, is have variation in what you do. Never do the same things over and over and over again, because if your opponent has any wherewithal, they will figure out what you're doing and find a way to counter it. So you need to have counters to counters to counters, and to have like little variation mix-ups so that your opponent is not able to anticipate everything that you're going to be doing. So this is the like backside, front side, closed side, open side, be annoying and then score high kind of thing. So that is the first three. There are 10 more for my patrons with in-depth discussion of where I learned these techniques that I'm using in sparring, how I'm experimenting with them, the trade-offs and benefits to them, things that I'm noticing as I'm working on them, and things like that. So if you enjoyed these first three, hopefully you'll enjoy the rest of the 10. You can watch those as a patron. Click on the link in the description below. It's easy to become one. And this is a new format for me, so hopefully if y'all like it, I'll do more like this. Thank you guys for watching.